All right, in this lesson, I'm going to cover backend server programming. This will be the web application which serves out JSON from web requests, and it accesses the database. JSON is a format that we can easily use within our web app later, so it's very helpful. And we want this to just serve JSON, so that we'll send in JSON and it will return JSON. In the last lesson, we covered a database, a lot about the database, setting up the database, and getting this database set up for our application to use. And in lesson 1, we talked about some application architecture and kind of just showed you the layout and structure. So let's get back to lesson 3. We're going to do some web server programming. All right, this is going to be a trick and a half. Hopefully this video doesn't get too long, but I want to get us a web server set up. Some ground rules here. We're going to be using the JDK 11 rather than the 17 that's out there and available. It's just with Java's licensing and stuff. Sorry about that. I just got a text. Let me shut that off just so that doesn't come through. Java's licensing has changed over time, and since Oracle bought it, the licensing is different, and version 17 has some licensing constraints on it. So let's follow this guide here. Step 1. I know it says bullet point 2. That's a problem with my document, but let's go to this website. I don't know how this works. Oh, there, I think it's going. I don't know what that other thing was. All right, here we are. Now, I'm going to make this smaller, and then I'm going to bring in our document over on the other side. Let's hide sidebar. Bring this a little bit smaller and take it over here. So we're going to use this site, start.spring.io, to build us a base project. Says select Gradle. Right here, project could be Maven, could be Gradle. What these are is kind of like when we talked in lesson 1 about package managers, but here in our web application, or our application, we're going to have a dependency manager. So these are going to pull in different libraries that are typically open source, but other libraries that we use for developing a web application. Now, so it says do Gradle, then it says select the version. Well, obviously we're going to do Java, not Kotlin or Groovy. And our version we want says 6.3, so we'll do this one. It's 13 now. When I wrote this, it must have been 3. And I don't want the snapshot because, yeah, that could be interesting. They must have changed the order of this because this is in a different order here. But so group, we're going to say com.proj1 artifact contacts. I don't want uppercase. Just makes things look weird. Name, whatever. The description really doesn't matter, but we'll say demo product for creating contact list. And then we got project 1 contacts. That's what we want. Packaging is a jar. Yes. Java 11, like I said. and it says download and generate. In order to, before I download and generate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these also here. I want Spring Boot data. So here I can say Spring Boot data. Let's go data, Spring data JPA. Check. I'm going to add, and I'm going to search for web. And I'm going to add, and I'm going to say MySQL. We want MySQL driver, and I'm going to add test. I might skip this. I'll skip test. Okay. So let's generate that. And it gives us a zip file named contacts. So let's move that to somewhere that we want it to be. I'm going to move it into code. Then I'll go to code. And here I'll just create a, well, actually, let me delete that. Move it into here. And let's just create a folder called project 1. Well, we call it proj 1. So there we go. Take contacts, put it in there. Okay. Now let's unzip it. And we got a folder named contacts. Great. Let's explore this folder. I'm going to open up source. Actually, no, we were modifying this, so I'm going to take this file and look at it in TextMate. It's called settings.gradle. Not a whole lot there. Build.gradle. That's what I was looking for, actually. Okay, so here, go back to our little document here. So we have implementation, Spring Data, starter web, MySQL. That's interesting. It came through with a J, but mine says MySQL connector Java. Things must have changed over time. So this said here to create a dependency block with these lines of code. And because we did that little add, we already have those. So there we go. Now we're going to go to source main application properties. I'm going to just open here, and we're in code projects, cancel, code projects, proj1, contacts, and it says source main resources application properties. Okay, I don't know why that didn't work. We'll do that this way then. Ooh, what did I just do? I don't know what I did. But let's undo that. What's going on here? Sorry. This is the joy of what you get to watch me do it live. and we figure out things together. So why can't I? There we go. All right, so add these properties right here to our application. So let's do it. Whoa. Okay, let's make sure they're all on the same line because we don't want them on the separate lines. Okay. And let's go through these. So back in our last lesson, we named our database project. So we're going to change that to project right there. I have a Spring user here. Let's go here and see. Aha. So we want to run this command. And we want to give them a password. So let me see here. I'm gonna go just look at the previous thing because I already have a password. So we put in the password. We got Spring user, driver class name. Put that down there. Okay, so MySQL driver. So we don't change that and leave this to true. Okay, now we have to create that Spring user on the database. Remember, so that we can actually have that user. So we're gonna come here. We're gonna take this command, paste it in here, get our password, and then paste that in there and hit enter. Now this is gonna fail for me because I already have that user created, but when you run it, it won't fail and it will create that. Now you need to give that user permission to your database, because if you don't give him access, then he won't have access, and that will be a problem for you. So you want to grant all to project star, so all the tables, to Spring user. That's going to be our user for our application server. And this %y is a wildcard, which means we don't care which database it is. We want the Spring user to have access to all the database. Well, all like localhost or all the servers that SQL has access to. So I'm going to run that. Okay. Query OK. Granted permission. Make sure the properties of the username and password match what you used to the create user. So go back to the properties file. So our username is Spring user. That's what we did. And our password is this. Our database is named project when we created the database name project. So all those are good. Let's save that file. All right, now starting to code, add the controller class. Okay, so we're going to go here, and we are in source. Right here, we're in source main resources. We want to be source main Java com project 1, so that's what we named it, contacts application. That's our only file there. Create a directory named web. So folder web. There we go. In the web directory, create a new file, contactscontroller.java. So I'm going to go right here. I'm going to say File, New. I'm going to hit Save. And I'm going to go there, Code. It might seem like it's pretty deep, but that's the path that it is. So I'll show you that path. From my user home, I have a projects, and then the contacts. This is where the actual project really starts, and then it's source, main, Java, com, proj1, contacts, web. So here it says, let's grab this, and we'll paste that there. That's going to be the name of our file. I'm just using the text editor for now. You're going to want to find an IDE, which is a development environment. My recommendation for IDE is IntelliJ. It provides really great tools to help you in development and make you faster. And there's a community edition, which is free. So there should be no reason to not use it. Let's see here. Oh, this one, IntelliJ IDE, IDEA. And let's say download. And what you want to do is download the community edition right here. You don't have all the things, but you have most of the things that like you're gonna need. The way it doesn't list that you have Spring, you can still develop in Spring even if you don't have this particular like checkbox right here. If we look at this is be productive in Spring. Ultimate provides a rich set of built-in developer tools, outstanding support for the Spring framework. And we're doing Spring in our program, but we're not gonna we don't need that for what we're doing here. And in fact, you don't need anything like that. You shouldn't be buying everything until you've like already understand what you're doing, got your foot in the door, really know what you're doing. But there's a lot of free stuff out there, and that's one thing I want to show you is that there's a lot of free stuff, and that IntelliJ Community Edition is a great free option. Okay, back to our thing here. Let's just take this. Wants us to take this and put it into our file. I want this. I want to add this. Well, that goes on a new line like that. And let's just give some space here to make that look a little prettier. I'm going to bring this over here and, whoops, that's not what I wanted. File. There we go. Contacts controller. Now the controller is a REST controller, which is a special type of MVC controller annotation for Spring. There's a lot to it. This is I don't know how deep we're going to go into the actual like coding, but just so you are aware at a high level, Java is considered an object-oriented language, which means that you build objects, and those objects can have functions and properties. Properties are like internal local variables, and functions are processes that run based on those internal local variables or other things. They're just actual It's like nouns and verbs, right? Properties are a noun, verbs are functions are verbs, they're actions. So as you build things, if you think about your body might be an object, or let's even just go down a little lower, and you have a hand, right? Well, hand has 5 fingers. So you might build a hand object, and that hand object has 5 fingers, and one function that the hand might be able to do is grab. So that's a simple example, but gives you the idea that, as you're coding objects to the real world, and then creating functions that also mimic that real world, so that you can logically understand how the code is formulated and how things flow. I'm going to skip down here. Talks about all this stuff. Oh, I think it goes through and talks about this line. Okay, so I'll talk about these. What we did in this controller. First, we have a package. The package defines the path that the system knows to our project. Now let's double check that, because we created a new path, right? So we want to make sure that it's com. I'm pointing on my screen, you can't see that. Com proj1, yes, contacts web. So that's exactly what we have here in this path too. Then we're importing a library. Remember, I talked about libraries. Well, we're going to import the Spring annotation library. Annotation gives us access to this annotation right here, which is the REST controller. Now, the Java syntax for a class or an object is public class name and then curly braces. So that's what we've got here. Now we're going to add a method to our class, which is going to be an endpoint for a web controller. And I'm going to, just to make this prettier, I'm going to figure out how to send that in one line. Okay, so now we've got this is the method format. So we public, meaning that other classes and other stuff outside of this can access this method and call it. And the name of this method is create contact. And it's going to return a Boolean value, which is true or false. In order to call this create contact class, we're going to pass in a contact object. And this is going to be the body of the message that we send into the system. So this will all make a little more sense as we get going. I'm just trying to lay out this stuff, but methods and functions take parameters. This one takes a parameter of a contact, and it's named contact for reference within the function here. And currently we're just returning a null value, because we'll get into that later. I do talk here in the document about contact, add a contact, edit, delete, and display. So those are their CRUD things. So we're starting out with the create. Remember, the C of CRUD is create. So this function is a post. So when you may not know much about, oh boy, HTTP protocol. But HTTP is your internet messages. They get sent all the time. And there's different method types for HTTP. There's get, post, put, delete. So this isn't, but you may have to go and actually like do some research and reading about this. But when you're creating a web application, when you do a create, the standard is to create a post. So let's do this. HTTP methods REST. Remember, so we're creating a RESTful web application, and so when you are sending a message, if you send a post, then you want it to be a create. Okay. When you do a get, you want it to read the data. That means on gets, the data doesn't change, and you're just reading the data. You're not processing data. Put would be update or replace. That's just the name of the verb. It's called put. We don't really use patch, but if you did, you can follow this. And last one is delete. And delete should do what you think it does. Okay? So here, if you see something and it says post, examples customers, you should have a pretty good indication that would be creating a new customer. And we go to our application. So we're posting to contacts and taking a contact. We're going to be creating a contact. Okay, I hope that's clear. I'm going to go ahead and just follow this through so you get some idea here. And I'm going to change a couple things here. So this is going to be a get mapping, and we are going to read customer. And this is not going to take a customer, but it's going to take a path variable customer ID, and here we're going to say customer ID. Why not IT? And here, remember when we created our database, we stored a string of a UUID for uniquely identifying that those contacts. So we're going to also take a string when we get our customer, and I called it customer. It should be contact. I'm sorry. Read contact, and this is going to be contact UUID as the name. Okay. I don't want to get too far off track from my document, but I do want to give you an idea of how this is working and the right ways to do that. I go through some of this stuff that we've talked about here, the different types, and then I give you here the rest of the code. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy that code. I walk through creating the customer or the get one. I'm going to just kind of back that off a little bit and do my own, and just make sure these are correct. Okay. So remember our CRUD. So we have create, read, update, delete. That's CRUD. And now let's talk about the path here. So this is going to be in the URL here. Well, it won't be actually in the URL, but we could be able to use it directly from the browser. also. But so we're gonna say contact here, and when you're setting this up, when you just hit enter on localhost contact, that's going to execute a get command because you're not changing that method. And from the web browser, you don't have the access to actually change that from get. I'll show you how you can do that in a second, but that will come here, and we have the wrong thing here, so we have contact instead, and we're going to say, let's say the idea was 1 2 3 4 5. Hitting enter, then that would get us, and that would return whatever contact we had in our database with that ID. Now that doesn't actually exist, but we'll get there. Let's go back to our document. Oh, whoa. What the heck? So here I also included a page request, which will help us in building our application. We may want a page so that it returns a list of the contacts, and we're going to pass in the size and which page number we're on. And that goes back to the size. So if we had, say we had 100 contacts in our database, but we were going through 10 at a time, and so the size would be 10, and page 0 would return the first 10, page 1 would return the next 10, and so forth. And we could do that throughout our document to get all of the contacts. But not the important part about developing the page system is you don't want to ever give the end users access to completely dump your whole database, or create a problem where the page won't load because they've requested too big of data set. And so giving a paging allows you to control the size of the data set. So if you had 1 billion records in your database and they just said get the contacts, and it started pumping them all out, eventually your server would crash before it returned all the contacts to the user. It just couldn't handle it. So you don't want to do that. We want to start out building paging so that it only returns a smaller set of data, but they can get access to whatever they have access to through the application with paging. It might be pretty high level, but still. Okay, we've referenced this contact object quite a bit. We've used it in our controller everywhere, but it doesn't exist. So let's create it. And I'm in Proj 1 contacts. So I want to make sure that I'm in. Okay, so this is root level. So I want to go source, main, Java, com, Proj 1, contacts. And it says here, create a new directory named model. Okay, I like it. I'm at this level. I need a model directory. The model is going to contain a directory of our Java objects that will only have it's what we call a plain old Java object. Some people call it a POJO, but it has a bunch of properties like this, and see, this just has contact ID, name, street, city, state, zip, phone, country. Okay, what's that look like? It looks exactly like our database. So that's what our database looks like also. So I'm going to grab this and we're going to put that in here. And because it came out really ugly, I don't know why the copy paste doesn't work, but it's ugly. And I'm going to just fix this up. Okay. So now our class contact is a public class, and it has ID, name, street, city, state, zip, and they're all strings. And this says this accessor, the first in the Java syntax for declaring anything inside of a class, is private. So by private, what that means is that no other code within the structure can access these fields. They can't access them. Now the way we give them access is we create getters and setters for all of these. So get ID, and what we're going to do is return ID. There's a simple example of a getter, and I'll create a setter. We're not going to return anything. We're going to say this.id equals ID. When we use this keyword this, it references the class, and if we don't use this, then it references the local variable that is in local memory right there. So yeah, let's just take this code now. We did ID already, and we're going to put that in there and create one for every single method and format this correctly because it looks ugly. There we go. So we got get name, set name, get street, set street, and we want to just create all of those for all the properties. I've already given that to you here. I wish it didn't format this so ugly, but I just have to clean it up, I guess. Now, Java won't actually care in this particular case if that's formatted ugly or not. It will still read and understand it. So that's it. This is our POJO. It has properties and it has methods. And these methods, they may not look like they do much because they don't do much. And they're pretty simple, but we like to keep it simple and not make things too complicated. Also, I talked about access control. We have these private and then public. Now, in this particular case where we're at right now, is we are not really utilizing the safety that this private public gives us, but we're setting up our application in a way so that people down the line don't directly access these variables. What that does for us is it allows us in the future to establish a contract so that if we needed to prevent them from changing the value of ID, for example, we could come in here and in the set ID, we would not allow that and delete that, and they would still be using set ID. They might be, but they're not changing the value. And that could give us some safety in changing that. All right, I'm gonna pause this and take a little break. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back, and now we need to create a class, a different class. This is going to be one that accesses the database, pulls the data out of the database. Well, there's going to be two classes. There's going to be a contact service, and then we're going to create a contact repository. Oh, yeah, we're going to update our contact also to give it a little more definition so that so it knows how to interact with the database. Okay. And let me go see here. Yeah, and then we got the contact repository. The repository is a Spring construct. There's doesn't look like there's a lot of code because this is the code right there for the repository, but it's all housed in this JPA repository, which is a nice little Spring Data utility that allows us to do all those SQL queries that I was showing you with the select star and the update and the delete. Allows us to do all that without having to write that code out, which is pretty nice. Okay, so let's get back here to our little service class. So we're going to create a new class. I've got it right here. I'm going to select all of this, maybe. Just paste it there. It's freaking ugly, so let's clean this up a little bit here. Oh my gosh, this is so bad. Sorry. That's going to be tabbed in. That's going to be tabbed in. Oh my gosh, I don't. Okay. I'll explain this in a second after I get this all cleaned up. All right. Okay. Oh, yes, we need to save it. Okay, so, and it says to name it contact service. We'll just do that right here. And I don't want it in context, but I want it source, main, Java, com, proj 1, contacts. Okay, so we got model, we got web, but we want a new directory, of course, named service. We've got our little service class set up, and I told you I'd walk through this with you. Initially, what do we have here? I want to just point this out again. We got a service. This is contact service, create contact. Contact service, get page. We talked about that page thing. So that's going to be a read operation, but this one is also going to be a read operation, and we're just going to get a single contact, okay? Now we got an update and a delete. Okay, let's put this on the right line. So those are our CRUD calls. It's pretty simple. Those are the things we're going to want to do when we have a contact. Create, read, update, delete. All right, now this says is going to use a, hold on, let's keep going through this. Sorry. Oops. We're using a bunch of libraries here. Some of these are right here are within our own project. These are files that we're going to use in our own project. Then we've got some other files that are in the Spring project. So we got AutoWired, Page, Pageable, and Service. So you can see right here, here's Service, AutoWired, right here. Service tells Spring that this particular class is a type of service. Services are classes that can be used in Spring through auto wiring in this manner. So we're going to create this repository in a second, and then it will be usable by this class, this service class. So these annotations just tell Spring about what it is that we're trying to do, and how Spring should look at them and interact with them and use them. Okay, so let's just look at the logic of the create contact here. Remember I told you a while back that we're gonna pass in the ID on the contact and not have the database generate the ID. So I want to make sure that the ID that we get when we're creating a contact is not null, because if it is null and we stuff that in the database, that could be a problem. So I have this little if condition. If the contact ID equals null, throw an exception. When you throw in Java, it won't process anything else after that, and it will exit the program. So I prevent it from actually going to the database repository, saving this contact record that was invalid. And we don't want the contact record to be created when it's invalid. And we could add other checking here to make sure that it is more valid. Okay. And some of this other stuff is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to get into it quite yet, but let's look. See, so yeah, these just all go directly to that Java object I told you about, the Spring one that's going to help us find records, get records, update records, and then delete them. I don't think there's really anything to go over in more depth there. So we need to go back to the contact. Let's save this. I'll go back here. Now we need to get this one set up to be used by the database. Because right now it is a plain old Java object, but it won't be, the database won't be able to use it yet. So I'm going to take these two lines right here and add it to the beginning of the class to tell the system the Java system and the Spring system, that this class should be considered an entity, which is a database entity. So this Spring Data knows that this is something that should be found in a database table when it connects to the database, and that the table name for this particular entity is contacts. Okay. And then we're going to want to add the other metadata to all these fields in our contact to make sure that it knows how to treat each field. So we've got the ID column, which is named ID, but these could be named different things. It also has a column definition which tells it the name of the column in the database. It happens to be ID, but it could be something different. And then this tells us that the column is a varchar 255 like we set it up. And this ID lets the Spring data system and Hibernate, which hibernates Java persistence tool, which helps with the database. But it lets it know that this is going to be the field that is the ID of this particular entity. Okay? That probably could use a lot more explanation. Let me know if I could do better there or not. And we're going to add these for every one of these. Yep. Okay, so, and they all can't be named because we only have one name. And so we need to fix that. I'm going to just take the name and paste it over. And keeping things named the same as in the class and in the database just helps save you a little confusion as things get more and more complicated. There we go. Got all those annotations on there. Just going through here. Now we're going to need to create this repository class. So let's come here. Oops. And save this. Now we're back here. We're going to go main Java, proj, context. We're at this level. And guess what? It wants us to create a folder named data. So we'll create a folder. Data. Create that here. And we're going to name this file contact repository. And we're going to take this, paste it in there. Let's clean it up a little bit. This is, like I said before, isn't 100% necessary, but it's nice to have. So I make a note here too. There's a lot of Spring Data magic in this JPA repository, but we don't need to explain all of that for now. There's just, all the code is actually hidden behind here. But this allows us to access the contact, which we created here. And it knows that it's going to be identified by a string, and it's this contact repository. So all this gives it all the information it needs to be able to access and start pulling contacts out of the database. And we're getting this set up so that we're actually going to start seeing some real good stuff happen here soon. I know it's a lot of just code and a lot of just trust me right now, but we're almost there. Okay, we're going to head back here to our controller. And in our controller, I'm going to use the contact service object method that we defined right here, this contact service. Okay, and I'm going to auto wire it, which means Spring is going to find it and make it available for this class to be used when it starts the class up. So in each method, I'm going to add, instead of returning null, I'm going to actually make it return the right thing from the service. I'm going to actually use the service and call the method within the service. So when I say contact service, create contact, what it's going to do is it's going to go here to this guy and it's going to call create contact. So it'll execute that, come into here, check if the ID is not null. If it's null, it'll throw an exception, otherwise it'll move on, and it will call the contact repository, which is this guy, which has it inside of this JPA thing, a method called save that already knows how to write the query for create, shoot, I just forgot. But yeah, create a record. Let's go back here, and we're gonna say yeah, I said create, and I meant insert into because my brain died. But so this is how we create, and this repository actually has the code to write this query and insert it into the database. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening behind the scenes. It makes this a lot easier. Oh, come on. I want to highlight that, but it's just not. Okay, so we don't want to return null in the page. We want to take a pageable and send that in. I'm going to do the same here for the single one, the get contact. Now we've written a lot of code. We haven't run anything yet. This might not be ideal, but it's where we're at. Ooh, I'm going to take this whole update because our update is different. So I want them to be, oops, same. I keep forgetting this program that I'm using doesn't have the same same formatting rules, so I keep deleting lines. Okay, so this one takes a path variable of the contact ID and it passes it into update. Let's go to the service, make sure that if our update takes a contact ID. Yeah, okay. There we go. Now, remember, I've done this all in the text editor. You don't need an IDE. IDE is helpful, but it's not required. You can just use a text editor, and it's pretty good. And we're going to come to our project, and we're going to run this now. So remember this, we're in SQL. I'm going to exit SQL now, and I'm going to go to our project, which is code projects. Remember where we put it? Not in there. Not right now, Todd. Yep. Okay, so we're here, and we want to be at the root directory of our project. I'm going to print this out so you see where we're at. Okay. And I'm going to go to my document here. It says running the project. Open up a terminal window, go to the project directory. Blah. I didn't use that in this particular example, but it's an example. Root folder, run that. Okay, so let's try it. Oh, It's doing something. There we go. I'm gonna sit back, have a drink. It's doing all the things. So right now, what this is saying is compiling the code. So it's Java is known as a compiled language. There's two types. Well, there's two types that we'll deal with. There's interpreted languages and compiled languages. Java is a compiled language, which means it takes all the code that we have and it compiles it down into machine language so that the computer program knows how to deal with it. And then when it actually runs, it runs the compiled and not the code that we wrote out. Now we ran into a problem because there's a class that my document doesn't list, which we used, and that is, I'm going to show you that right now. Over here we threw invalid model exception, but we didn't define invalid model exception. So I'm going to go, and you're going to have to do this when you do yours too. I'm going to find this. You're not going to be able to find it, but I can find it. So context, source, main, Java, com, proj1, context, exception. Okay. So let's go here. We'll create a new file. And we're going to say save. And we're going to go source, main, Java, com, proj1, context. Here we're going to say create a new folder called exception. Okay. That was my elbow on the desk, not what you think it was. Okay. Now I'm going to come into exception here and I'm going to copy the name of this and paste it there. I'm going to say .java. Okay, so now you can see I have invalid model exception. Now I need to see what this looks like. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to grab this. And then I'll close this and paste it over here. And that means I need to fix my document up. Okay, so we'll okay, so it's basically right here. Whoa. Okay, so here we need to okay, so I'm just gonna So create a exception folder at the same level as the other class. Let's see here. Okay, we don't need that. Just go here, projects, contacts. What's hiding? Source main Java com proj1 contacts. Okay, this is our folder. We've got exception right there. So create that folder. And then create a file named, oops, Control Z that. File is going to be named this. Invalid model exception.java. And then paste this code into the file. Oops. Give you that code right here. Can't remember how to do that. I think I go it's not formatted all nice like the other stuff is. I don't know. It's just looks ugly. Okay, I'm gonna do something just so I can get this formatting looking nice for the document. Sorry you have to watch all this. You just have to. Okay. There you go. There we go. Perfecto. I guess, yeah. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I just wanted to get that cleared up so that it was in our documentation also. And we created it here. Now let's go back to contact service and let's just make sure we're in contacts. So let me explain this error real quick. This was going through, it was trying to build the class and it couldn't find this invalid model exception in the contact service. So if we go here, it's in com proj1 contacts exception invalid model exception. There it is. We just created it. And now it's here, invalid model exception. We defined it. Perfect. Now let's go back here and see if we can't build it again. Compile the code. And you might run into these things all the time. Like right now, it's getting mad because it doesn't know anything about AutoWired. That might be a bigger problem. I'll have to work through it. You'll get to see. So Spring annotation. Oh, I'm going to cheat and go to my project. Ooh. Main Java exception web. It doesn't like any of this. We want this line right here. We want to import the Spring Beans factory annotation library so that Java knows about it. Okay, we're going to run it, build it. Now it failed again. Didn't like something. It doesn't like our contact object, and that's because we didn't import the contact. But if we come over here, I'm going to grab this. I'm going to grab these two because we need to import them for use in our object. There we go. And we'll build again. So these are the things that Java is going to take care of for you, because I'm just going to grab all these and make sure they're there also. So the IDE, remember I've talked a little bit about IDE. Well, the IDE helps take care of this for you. So if you see here, I actually did list those imports. I just didn't do that step when I was I just got ahead of myself. Okay, let's build this again. But yeah, that IntelliJ IDE is going to help you build this a whole lot better and a whole lot easier without a lot of confusion. So now, this is super fun. I'm missing a curly brace somewhere in my contact Java file. That's frustrating. Let's check this. I do this little game when I'm missing a curly brace because they're sometimes very difficult to identify and track down a missing curly brace. It can be really tough. So what I do, my game is, every time I see an open curly brace, I put up a finger. And I do that as we go. So this is, so open, 1, open, 1, close, put down a finger, open the finger, close, okay, close the finger, open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close, city, open, close, open, close, state, open, close. Especially when the nesting gets really deep. Like this is this isn't deep nesting, which is not bad, but sometimes it can get really bad. And that did not help me find it right off. So let's see here. In code projects, proj1, context main, source com, proj1, context model, contact.java, line 39. It's missing a return statement. Oh, my bad. My bad. It's at line 39. Oh, and I said this returns a string, and I don't return anything. So that's where I've got a problem. But it really, because it's a setter, it shouldn't return a string. It should return void. And void is a keyword in Java that means returns nothing. So there we go. We're compiling again. But these are the real life things you're going to run into as you're building and setting up a Java application that, you're just going to have to learn what these things mean and how to get past them. Um, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking, learning what it says and say, okay, I don't understand this, cannot find symbol, and take that directly to Google and just be like, what does this mean? And there is so much help online now to help you get through these things and help you understand. See, look at this. The cannot find symbol errors generally occur when trying to reference an undeclared variable in your code. A cannot find symbol error means that the compiler cannot do this. Your code appears to be referring to something the compiler doesn't understand. Perfect. That's obviously exactly what it was. It was referring to the page object in this case, and I had not included this import page. So it was like, I don't know what object you're trying to refer to. You're trying to tell me that there's a page there, but I don't know what it is. Okay, so I got a new error. Oh. This error is because of a test that I didn't write. And it's telling me I can look at it, a nice little HTML page it generated. So let's take that and just check it out for now. Oh, it ran one test. That test failed, and 0% were successful. And that's pretty cool. Let's go look at what that test is. So we've mainly been working here in source main, but if we go to source test, Java, proj1, context, there's a file that was automatically generated right here. And this file is not running. And why is it not running? I don't know. Let's see what Google says about this. I'll take it here. I don't. Okay, let's go back here and see what's going on. So this is the build failed. I'm just gonna do this so I stop confusing myself. Clear it up and run it again. See what happens. Okay, so it failed. But the good part now, oh boy. clear didn't help me. So this test is making sure that the context loads. And I'm going to go over to this working project that I have. I'm going to look at that test and see if I'm actually going to do this in IntelliJ so you can see it. Yeah, you see it's doing the same stuff it was doing over there on the command line. Alright, sorry for that interruption again. Now, I think I did figure out though what was going on here, and this has to do with my Gradle setup. So let's come here and look at this file real quick. Oh, okay. So let's do this. Echo Java home. Nah, and this is my problem right here. Okay, so this is not the Java virtual machine I want to be using. So this is an environment problem. Remember I said we're using Java 11? Well, right now it is not using Java 11. It's using Amazon's Corretto Java 11, which is not what I want to be using. So I want to change to the right Java JDK, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. So let's see here. CD ls dot vi dot profile, z profile. Okay, z. That's not what I wanted. And this one also doesn't have what I wanted. So I think it's so I'm gonna just run this command right here right now, get the right Java version running, and then we'll go back there. Code, projects, proj1, contacts. Okay, so right here, go back. Okay, Gradle build. check the environment variable. You probably won't have that problem because you won't be running. You won't be running multiple Java versions, which might be helpful. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually open up this project over here in IntelliJ and see what I got going on. I'm sorry that I have to do this, but one day you might understand. You might be doing this and have to do it as well. I'm gonna say in IntelliJ, then I said open and I picked the let me go through that again. I'm going to go code, projects, project 1, contacts. Now I'm here in this thing. I'm going to pick the build.gradle, okay? I'm going to pick that and I say open. Then it's going to give me this option. Instead of just open the file, it's going to open as project. So now I've got a whole new project right here and as our thing. And this is running the build right now. So when you get that community edition, you can also do this too. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to run right here. I'm just going to run Gradle build, just like we were doing on the command line. And now it's running the test. It's running that test class. And okay, so that failed, just like we were seeing. Okay, and it has the same problems that we were seeing from there. Okay. So let's do this. Run with the stack trace, and so this ran build dash stack trace. So that's going to help us identify what's going on here. We're going to come back up here. Oh, I'm going to just check here, make sure, see what this says for Gradle. Okay, so here's my problem. I don't want, well, one, the project SDK. Alright, so we want, want Java 11. I don't want 17 because, yeah, I think that's the problem. Oh, okay. Okay, so we couldn't find the SQL driver. And if we go, remember back when we were setting this up, and this didn't say Java? I'm wondering if our document was better off where we did the imports and I wanted this rather than what it had here. Okay. And then let's go to the source main or source resources, application properties, and now we set this up with the environment variable MySQL host so that if we pass that in, we can change it from localhost. So when we deploy it to like a production server, it will be deployable. And we're going to say, yep. Okay. And now, let's see if that changes this build. Oh, I wish I didn't run that with all that debug. Ah, what happened? So it can't find the com MySQL driver, and so let's man, did they move it? I wonder if that's the issue. Let's see here. refresh the libraries. So it repulls from Maven and it gets that new library. Now, let me double check too. I mean, this is all like stuff that you're just going to have to work through or figure out and troubleshoot. Test implementation. If I go back to the other one, what do we got here? Test implementation, runtime only. Spring dependency management version. 1.0 Java. Source compatibility 11. Let's double check over here. Source compatibility 11. Okay. All right. Let's go back to the build here. See what happened. So that build. Let's run this. Still wants to fail. And that's because if we so let's skip. We'll just skip to the next step. Just for fun. I'll show you why, maybe. See what this does. Oh, didn't like that because, yeah. Starting up, it's trying to do some stuff, and so certain configurations in the Energy Manager aren't set up and it's not working. So let's go compare that. We got application properties. Which project are we in? We're in project contacts. Okay. I'm going to just put these side by side. Or maybe one over the other. Code project. So this is the one that we want to connect to project. Oops, sorry. That one, and then we got this one. Okay. And the reason that this is failing So it's not able to connect because it can't create the JDBC environment. So it could not obtain connection to query metadata. Spring access denied for user Spring user at localhost using password yes. Okay, so that's good. So now we need to go, remember our little SQL tool. We go see what's up with our user. Spring user. Shoot, remember all that stuff I told you about being able to connect any database and all that? Oops. Okay. -P. And I'm going to put in our super secret password. Oh, remember, I didn't do this. This is not the right password. Because we created a password over here. Did we? Oh no, that was the root password. The Spring user password should still be. Ooh. Let's go like this. Spring user. Grab our password. Now we're in, right? So it didn't fail like it's failing over there. Okay, figuring it out, fellas. So right here, we said run this command, did we not? Well, we need to exit, and I'm gonna connect as root, and I'm going to use my new password. Remember the one we talked about? Where is it? It's right here. Copy that, paste that there, and now I need to and this needs to be project. Identified by, grab this password. I think I skipped some steps, and that's why I'm not going to do this %, I'm going to do localhost. Okay. And then we're going to run this. Okay. And then we're going to come back here. IntelliJ. And run this. Okay, and then I'm gonna exit out of MySQL. I'm gonna run this again. So the Gradle boot run will help me to identify the errors that are happening when it's trying to start up, because basically when it's running that test, it's running Gradle test, and when it's running Gradle test, it's running into a problem that this. I'm gonna just Google that and see what it says. Spring Boot Hibernate dialog, not set. Oh look, this is probably what I already used, and I don't want it to do update, so I'm going to say none. Why is that? What is this? Alright. Com MySQL. So I wonder what we need to do com.mysql like it had, and then we got MySQL connector. And then we've got com MySQL CJ. Huh. So what did this have? We'll try that. CJ, JDBC. And in there we have driver. We'll go to application.property and we'll just do that. And we'll run Gradle build. Could not resolve. This is -J. So let's go do something. Something's changed since I set this up, and that is causing us problems. And I want to find this out. So we're going to go to search. Maven Central is where those dependencies are, and I want to find the MySQL dependency. And this is just incredible here. Com MySQL. See, so look, this changed. What? No, I don't care. So it used to not be this. It used to be what I had before. Wait, where did that go? See, so, okay, so relocated to this. That's the bane of my existence. So, okay, so now we got to here and it failed still. And if I come here, just run this and I'll say, can't connect again, maybe. So sometimes when we get these stack traces, we want to get up to the top and we want to see why it said there was a problem. So it started trying to connect using the connector. And it access denied for that user. But now let's disconnect from here and let's connect. And I'm going to edit this. I'm going to say Spring user. And I'm going to come here. I'm going to, ooh, that's not my password. That's the problem. Remember? Change our password to this. Sorry, too many little things here. Let's see what this does. I swear, when I first set this up, I did not have these problems. Oof. Still failed. Unknown database DB example. Well, of course, because we don't have that. So, of course, we named it project. Sorry, I took those properties from the web and now they messed me all up. Let's run this. The build again with the tests. I think when these tests succeed, it's going to be running just fine. Sorry, I just have the Mac camera, and when it's not as comfortable to look at the screen, and the way the camera's doing, it's a little more comfortable like that, which pushes me way down. I hope you don't care. But look at that. So we ran the build, that ran. So now let's come here. And we were in our document. We were right here. I'm going to take this command again. Oops. Get that D. Okay, and then instead of this, we're going to run Gradle build. Okay, we got connected. Okay, so I know that was big and long and frustrating, not just for you, for me. Some of the things that we found were wrong. The Java virtual machine wasn't the right one. So a good way to test that would be to come here and just say java-version. It's going to tell you what version of Java you're running. Now I'm trying to set this up on 11, so you want to make sure you're running 11. Okay, second, we had some, I'd skipped a couple of steps in the setup for setting up the user to the database because I thought that those were done, but they weren't. So the user didn't have access. Next problem we ran into was the driver library that we listed here didn't had changed since I created this documentation, and instead of using MySQL connector Java like this, it's now using I'll go here. They've moved it to com MySQL connector -j, and then the application.properties has this com MySQL CJ JDBC driver. So this is what you kind of call, what we call dependency hell, but sometimes things change. You have to work through it and figure out what's going on. You have to read and get good at reading these exceptions. Sometimes you want to read at the bottom, the last error. It's going to tell you some stuff. And then other times you need to go to the top and read that. And that will tell you more stuff. So here, this is perfect case. We know, for instance, we don't have a database named db_example. We didn't create that. So I came here and I realized, oh, that was transferred over from a copy paste. Big problem. Okay, so what did we run? We run the build. Now we want to run the boot run, okay? This will actually start our Java application. It will be running on a port and we'll be able to access it and actually be pulling data out of the database. Right here it said the port started on port 80. And that's going to be very useful and important to us. I'm going to open up a tool. You should get this tool. It's free. Everything is free. And this is a very useful tool. But I'm going to change my workspace. I think it's this one. No. No. I don't know. Workspace, only me, contacts. Okay. So here, remember we said localhost 8080. I'm gonna go to here, cancel all this. Now that we figured out that, I don't need to run that, and I'm gonna run this. No database selected, so we want to select the database, run it again, and let's get Janice's record. Okay, so I'm gonna grab her ID, and I'm gonna paste that right here instead of what I had before. We're gonna run it, and bam, boom, bam, we got Janice's record. Remember I told you it was going to be JSON, so we get the ID that has the ID, then her name, her street, city, state, zip, US. What if we got this wrong and we didn't put in the right thing? It tries to get it and it throws an error. That's fine. That's fine for now. It was the wrong ID and we got an error, so now we know we can't put in the wrong ID and get valid data. So now let's try Peter's info. And there's Peter. So I'm going to go back to the end where we were on our document here. And we're actually doing quite a bit. A lot is happening, and it's a lot behind the scenes. So when we tried to get Peter, it didn't find him, and it threw this error. And it said that, but okay. Come back here. Alright, so now run the Spring Boot run. If you get stuck, you can go to this guide. Talked about Postman, getting Postman, put in the thing. We can go to do the paging thing if we want to just do the page. Remember how I said we could say the page was 10 and we get page 0. See if that works. Okay, now it gets a list of data, and we got Janice and we got Peter. We also know that it was unsorted, what page number we're on, how many pages there are, a whole bunch of other data about this data, which is nice and useful. So, okay, I'm going to take a little break. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back, and we're going to look at, maybe we want to create a new record, and we don't want to, we don't want to mess with Janice or the other one. So I've got right here post. Remember, post is create, localhost contacts, and I've got my data here, which is ID, name, Jane. We're going to do Jane Peppernickel on Wallace Street with that zip code. Okay, so right here I want to point this out. This is my GUID ID. Okay, so I'm doing some magic behind the scenes to make sure this runs right and is creates correctly. Right here I have a pre-request script. This is JavaScript. I'm creating a variable, pulling in the UUID package so that it can create a UUID. And right here I create a UUID. I take that UUID and I set it into a variable name called myGUID, like that. And I also log it out. So so that it will, every single time this runs, it will create a brand new UUID, and it won't recreate a UUID that's the same ever. So let's run that. 404, not found. Contacts. So let's go look. Sorry, I know I switched over to the thing. It says contacts slash. That's actually going to give us a problem. So now it returned true. And if we go back, I'm going to save that change. We go back and run get page. Now we've got Janice. We've got Jane on Peppernickel in the Wallace state. And we've got Peter. So that actually created her. Okay. Now you're going to watch me create a update. We don't have update in our thing, so I'm going to create that update. I want it to go in the contacts folder, and I want it to be update contact. And let's go look at our update definition here. Put mapping contact ID. So we need this to say contact, and we need an ID here. Oh, that's not the ID. So let's look at our body. Got this. We're not going to run this. And we're not going to have this. We're going to change that to be get contact. Okay, so we got Peter here. We're going to update Peter. But I don't want to update Peter with all of Jane's information, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to go paste that there. Grab this here. Put that there. Okay, so, and this is, what do we want? He's actually on 5678 main, not 567. All right, so let's update him. That said it worked. Let's go back and we'll get Peter now, and he's on 567. So, okay, so what did we do here with Postman? We created HTTP connections that connect directly to localhost. We use the path that is defined in our contactscontroller.java. I'm going to minimize this so we can see this. So we have contacts page, and then boom, 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 post, mapping, get mapping again, put mapping, and delete mapping. Okay, so here we use those same verbs. We get the page with contacts page, and we passed in the size. Look at this. If I pass in the size of 1 and page 0, we're going to get one person, right? But if I go to page 1, we'll get Jane. If I go to page 2, we'll get Peter. Okay, so there's Peter. So now we're actually paging through the data. We're on page number, page size is 1, the offset is, don't worry about that. We can see here total number of pages is 3, total number of elements is 3. We're on the last element, yes. If we go back to page 1, the last will not be true. First element, last is false. Number of elements in this page is 1. Size is 1. Okay, so this paging data actually gives us quite a bit of good information. I'm not going to delete a user yet, but we use those different verbs. We created endpoints to localhost to interact with our application server, and we can tell and know, for instance, for right now, that is actually running, being executed, and then it's doing what we expect it to do. And we still haven't built a UI. But we know that our application is working so far and it's interacting with the database. So we have endpoints that we can call for our contacts list page that will actually work for our UI. So this is really cool. I'm going to end lesson 3 right here. I know this was a long one, but I think it's very valuable, and I'm glad you got to see me have to work through some really annoying, troubling problems with the compiler, because those happen all the time. It's like a daily part of a web application developer's job, figuring those out, and dealing with it. There was one other thing I wanted to point out. I don't know, it didn't come up, and it probably will come up in the next section, but we'll hit it right now because it's a part of this application. But there's a thing in web applications called CORS, and CORS basically doesn't allow you to do cross-site scripting. So your web application will run, but if you were to call it like we are from localhost 8080 to from some other place, let's say you were in facebook.com, you're calling Twitter's API in some JavaScript that you put in there. Well, if Twitter doesn't allow you to call their API from outside sources or from Facebook, whatever they allow, the CORS will come into place. It's a security feature to prevent you from hacking websites that you shouldn't have access to from the JavaScript library. So that will definitely come up as we're building our Angular front end. But I have this little bit of code which we'll go over when we add that, but we'll add it back to our application here. This is in the contacts application, the main class that wasn't there. We really haven't even looked at that yet, but it's here. And this particular one doesn't have it, but let me go to my document, make sure it's also listed here. These are just the Angular, this is all the Angular class, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't think it's listed, so search, there we go. It was listed. I think we skipped over it in lesson 3. Okay, so let's just go grab this right now. Open up contacts application.java. That's in your main com projects contacts where we've been putting everything else in here, and just paste that in there. Okay, and now we also need to do some importing. Let me give you the imports. There we go. So you should have access to those, and if I go back here, those errors cleared up. Wait. Yeah, we're in the wrong class. So come here, get rid of those, and put those. Now, as far as I told you this about security, it is about security, but security is way beyond the scope of what I'm trying to teach here and stuff. And so I have opened this wide open so that no matter where you're coming from, no matter what you're coming from or what you're trying to access, you have access to it. It's like wide open. But you don't want to do that in a production application. I just have to say that right now, but that's how we're getting it set up so that we don't really want to deal with the scope of security right now as we're going. Okay. Oh yeah, and this little contacts application class that is created here, we didn't really go over it much, but it is where your program starts at. It runs this class, and it passes this class into Spring. So this is just the Spring Boot stuff that's pretty important, but it kind of runs behind the scenes, and you don't really deal too much with it. I'm just checking. Okay. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to end this here. Thanks. We'll see you.